We are our patients. We are no different. We meet you where you are. The goal is, we all struggle. Being human is hard. There's nothing wrong with you. Your nervous system is actually reacting exactly how it's supposed to, given the inputs that it has been given. So there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, but you're ready to change. And that is actually your inner intuition calling to you saying, I'm ready. That's what it is. That's why you're seeking. It's not, there's nothing, that is your inner healer calling to try to help you.
Ketamine Connections, welcome back. So excited to have you. The show is now over a year old, and some of you have been here for that long. And so you know that we don't really sell quick fixes here. We don't really talk about silver bullets or magic bullets or anything other than the real transformation that happens. And that is why I'm so excited to share this episode here with you today with Alli Waddell of the Illumma Clinic that is here in Austin, Texas. I got the pleasure to meet Alli at a luncheon a few years back and really admire the work that she's doing. And even more so than the work that she's doing, the realness with which she's doing it. Because if you've been paying attention to the show, one thing that we make abundantly clear here is that transformation is not easy. It is something that is nuanced, it's something that is personalized, it's often something that is really scary, and it's something that is really worth it when you get to the other side. Because I've said it before, I've said it again, you get to become someone different when you go through this journey. And with Illumma Clinic being one of the oldest ketamine clinics in Austin, Texas, with them having administered now over 14,000 infusions, there's a lot of wisdom to be offered here. And I hope that you find peace in that, because I know that a lot of the time when we're stuck in a dense mental state that ketamine is being used for, depression, anxiety, PTSD, those are the top three. And those states come with a level of loneliness. When we're in deep levels of pain, it is so common to think that I'm the only one who feels this way. I'm the only one who's ever felt this way. And there's no point to even trying to explain this pain to anyone else, because who would understand this? I don't even understand this. And if that's you, I get it. I really do. And I hope that you are finding good information on this show. I hope that you reach out. We're starting to answer more emails and more inquiries from people listening to the show on the show. So no question is too big or too small. I will answer every email personally. And if it is a question that is really common in the ketamine space, then I will absolutely make an episode about it, because I would say a third of the episodes on the show are from listener questions. And that's something that Alli and I got into the conversation here as well, is the difference between someone who really thrives with ketamine and someone who struggles, someone that is a really good candidate and someone who's not. And I'll tell you a few things off the bat. Readiness is not a checklist. There are check marks for sure, and we talk about that in different episodes as far as medications and things like that. However, readiness is not always as straightforward as you think, right? We've talked about it in other episodes, how, if I think I'm scared, then maybe I'm not ready. How do you know that that fear isn't the gateway to your deepest transformation or your deepest breakthrough or your biggest epiphany? You just don't know. And that's why getting help with this is so valuable, because there's so much that's unspoken in the space. And so even just talking to someone who knows what questions you can ask to get more clarity, there are always resources in the show notes. So please check those out. We have free resources. We have the ketamine preparation protocol that is a paid resource. We have my contact information so you can reach out with emails. There are so many resources available to you. And I know how hard it is personally and professionally to take that step and reach out. And I hope this episode inspires you to take that leap and take that step, because when you take one step, then the next step will appear, and then the next one. And, a journey of 1,000 steps starts with a single one. Alli Waddell was a pure delight to have on the show. She offered so much wisdom and was just really fun to talk to. So let's get into the episode so you can hear it for yourself. A lot of listeners of this show are new to ketamine, and honestly, If that's you and you're anxious or just someone who likes to feel prepared, then you know that ketamine can be beautiful and it can also be overwhelming. Most clinics will not tell you this, but preparing for ketamine is what turns a confusing, chaotic trip into a grounded, life changing experience. The ketamine preparation protocol is your go to guide to walk you through that door with confidence. I've used this exact framework with clients since 2021 to help you feel safe, supported, and ready. And the feedback is always the same. I'm so glad I had this before my first journey. So, whether you've already started ketamine or you're about to, if you're wondering, what if I do it wrong? Just don't wonder, prepare. Head to the link in the show notes and get started with the ketamine preparation protocol so that you can get the transformation that you deserve.
Hello.
Welcome, Alli Waddell Illumma here in Austin, Texas. Welcome to Ketamine Connections. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Just got back from vacation, so I'm back in it.
Amazing. All right. So I've warned you that we start every interview with the same question. If you can go back and tell the you before you started all this anything, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think I would really go back to me probably the December before we opened the clinic in February. Like, just take a breath and it will unfold exactly how it needs to. There was a lot of me trying to control it and make Illuma into something for a long time, and like me being so scared that it was going to fail or it wasn't going to, we were going to fail. Something bad was going to happen. And, the reality is, as long as I was in alignment with my intentions, it was going to do exactly what it needs to do. And all of it was a lesson and a gift, even especially the really hard stuff.
Right. It's interesting too because we've met. This is not our first conversation, and I know that you've reiterated the clinic so many times. You've expanded the clinic, you've added more offerings and things like that. And so, what do you think allowed you to tune into that? Right, like receiving the message of what the clinic needed.
I think part of that is obviously seeing what is asked for by our clients, like really like seeing where the gaps are in our offerings, seeing where I think others are not offering certain things and kind of seeing opportunity in that. And then the other thing is kind of slowing down and realizing, like, as as forward thinking as I am, as much as a kind of visionary person as I am, is that's not the reality of how things get made. It's like, we're not a tech company. We can't like make stuff and ideate and go real fast. Like, this is a care driven business. I have 18 employees, but even when we had 6 employees, like, things take longer than, of course, in my vision, they shall do. And so realizing that we're not in a hurry, like, the goal is to do things and do things well. And the key to that is typically slowing down and getting real clear about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it, and trying to not just like power through and like do the next thing because you're out of kind of a fear based place of like, if we don't do this, we're going to fail, or somebody else is going to do it first, or, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's really what's been helpful to kind of sit in.
Yeah, it reminds me of this concept that I think some people, especially in more 3D based realities, adhere to, where they don't realize that once you create something, it has a life of its own, right? And as much it's like children, right? It's like as much as you want to put your will on it, your preferences, your vision, it's also, like you said, slowing down and tuning in of, well, what's best here, not just for that vision and for that direction, but also for the people that are bringing that forth. I've learned that lesson a lot in the past 6 months of how my hurry and my haste impacts other people that work with me, and just wanting to really be like, you know what, that's not the kind of business I want to run.
Yeah, that's definitely what had been happening. I started receiving feedback that I felt like a bulldozer at times. Like, I was like, we're going to do this. We're going to do this now. It needs to be done yesterday. And like, what I was really doing was just overwhelming my team. And then nothing was getting done efficiently. And it wasn't helpful because then people are annoyed and kind of resentful about it. And so Luckily, that has not happened in the last, or happened far, far less in the last few years, because I really have a good team now. And what I really needed is I needed a number two who was the brakes to my gas. Like I'm such a visionary that I need an operational person that's super grounded and really detail oriented, because I don't think through the details. I think here's the finished product. Let's do it. Ta-da. And so like to really stop and like prioritize, okay, this sounds like a good plan, but this is currently what we're doing. What would you like us to stop doing in order to make this new thing a thing? Like, so really having somebody that's comfortable and confident enough to kind of stand in front of me and being able to hear that feedback and be like, okay, you're right. Let's talk about like putting it on a timeline, writing a plan, that kind of thing. And so that's been really helpful.
Humble medicine. But then it's also, have you noticed that since you do that, that things kind of move faster?
Yeah, I think they just move smoother, which is what the real thing is. Because what I used to do was push things through, things would get done faster, but then there would be a lot of like hiccups once it was live because we really hadn't thought through all of the things. So, like, we're kind of still building while we're already launching it. We really don't have the thing. And oh, did you do that? Oh, we didn't do that part. And so it would be like clunky. It might have been launched, but it was like not really done. And so that's what's been really good. Now, when we launch something, I know that we've really thought it through. We've done as much as we can in preparation. We have all of our kind of communications and process and plans, ironed out. Everybody that's part of it knows what we're doing. So nobody's like surprised, because that also used to happen. They were like, wait, what are we doing? When did this start? Kind of thing. And so that's been very helpful.
That's beautiful. And in all of this, like all the stuff that you're learning, your team's learning, everyone's learning and growing, I think you mentioned serving just under 2,000 clients with ketamine. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's where we're about at, right around 2000. Yeah, we've done 14,000 infusions, I think, close to 13,000 maybe in a little over 6 years. So, yeah, it's a lot of people, a lot of medicine, a lot of good, a lot of impact, some real big headache moments, some real hard stuff. But yeah, I mean, we've really seen and I think refined the process of caring for people with ketamine, using ketamine as a tool. Seeing what really helps people, like who is it a really good fit for, who is it maybe a good fit for, and who's probably a definite no, and not just on the standard like check boxes of like you're good for ketamine or not, but like what are we seeing when people are really successful, and then what are we seeing when people fight the process more, and what are we seeing when people just completely check out for the process and are really not engaged in it. And how do we optimize to make sure that we're good at saying no to people and we know it's a no? I think that's a real present for people, is like to really be confident that we know that you're not ready, and that is not a judgment or anything bad, or that this really just means that right now this is not the tool. It doesn't mean it will never be the tool. It just means that right now this probably will not, you just won't get as much out of it as you could if we waited and maybe you did some other stuff first. Or it's just bad timing with what's coming on in your life. Like if stuff is really frantic right now and stuff is up in the air and nothing's really stable, or you're not in a safe environment, or I mean, there's all kinds of things that could be coming up that maybe now is not the time to really lay it all bare and to really open it up, because you're just not as grounded as would be potentially helpful. So I think that's something that we really have become kind of experts at, is that kind of deep knowing, or at least trying to help people, guide them on like, is this tool right for you now? Kind of messaging and being honest with people instead of just taking people's money because they want to do ketamine, or letting people do what they want, because there's a lot of practitioners sadly now that just let people guide their own experience, and I'm not sure everybody is getting the most out of that.
Amen. I remember talking to a client, doing ketamine at some clinic, and they let this client choose their own music. And I think there are times where that could work out, but in this case it was not a positive experience. And so there's little details that sometimes people don't consider like that, but I'm sure you have examples of even bigger details. What are some of the things that you notice that would you mentioned not being grounded, not having it be the right time. Like what are like some metrics of, you know what, this isn't the right fit for you right now?
I think the number one is, are you really actually ready to do the work? Like, are you really in a space where you want to uncover, unpack, and process hard things? And you're dedicated, not only like, are you open to it, but you're like actively interested and excited about doing that work, like as excited as you can about digging through your trauma. But that's the biggest one. Like this ketamine is just this brief, beautiful tool, like all psychedelics are, that we have to unlock things. That is not the work. The ketamine is not the work. The ketamine is the interesting exploratory part. The work is the before and the during and the long term after. Like this also this idea that this is 6 weeks is laughable. Like you might be getting medicine on and off for 6 weeks to 2 months, but we say this is a year minimum. Like this is ready. Are you ready to commit the next year to actually change your life? To actually explore? Are you really ready to break patterns? Are you really ready to start new processes? Are you really ready to be real honest with yourself, with others, to change relationship dynamics? To like it's not light, easy, fun play. It is like, if you want to get the most out of it, listen, people can use ketamine to light, fun, easy play, as we know all the time. But in what we're doing at Illumma, that's not the goal. Our goal is to do deep, fundamental work and to not have you do ketamine for the rest of your life. This is trying to be an impactful time period for you to really deep root and change long term, but you have to be really interested and I think excited about doing that. Because if you come in passive or scared or unwilling, then you're just doing drugs, which again can be helpful in the short term, but not what we're doing at Illumma, which is you can go find plenty of places to do that. But that's, I think, the biggest thing is what we see, who we see do the very, very best. And people are like, I'm ready. I'm done living this story that I've built for the last however many decades. I'm ready to rewrite. I'm ready to change things. And I'm signing up for that. And that's who I see do the absolute best is that person. And that typically is people who've already started to do the work. I as much as people want to use it as a earlier interventional care, which I think it can be used as, I do think that you need to have some fundamental therapy work prior or personal growth work prior to coming to ketamine or any psychedelic in order to get the most out of it. If you haven't done any work, this is going to be a real steep onslaught, because I just don't think you don't have the language, you don't have the skills, you haven't really built up those ways of self-exploration that I think can help as much. And I think that's what we really see. And I think where people demonstrate that is, are they interested and eager about doing prep work? And if people are like, I don't need to do that, then it's like, well, okay, well, let's talk more about what we're doing and what you think we're doing, here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think preparation is the absolute best step. I'm actually working on a self-paced program after doing preparation calls for since 2021. I'm like, "Oh, I can like automate this." And so just to give people access to how to prepare for this, cuz not all clinics like Illuma are offering preparation, and then some clinics are sending people to therapists, and not all therapists are versed in psychedelic preparation. So just to get the preparation out there so people can have that available to them, because with what you're saying is the way I like to think about it is, you can go into ketamine totally blind, never having done anything, and you're likely, it's not definitive, nothing is, but you're likely to see, you know, reduce reduced symptoms. Right? But symptoms are the outside. Symptoms are the surface. Symptoms are the okay. And that's where we have people going back to the medicine, right? Because they don't have the access, they don't have the skill set to go under the symptoms, which is what you're talking about with doing the work with therapy, digging into trauma, and everything that you've said so eloquently and beautifully is to go under the symptoms and repattern what what's has that the brain wiring and firing that way, and then it's done at a structural level. And yes, you can go back to ketamine for a booster, you can go back to ketamine for something new that arises, right? Because we're always going to be doing some sort of work, but it's ketamine gives you access to structure your subconscious mind that is running the shows, which is where the symptoms come from. And that's literally what this platform is about, is educating people on that, so they're not just coming to the ketamine going, oh, the ketamine will do everything. It's not, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I know. Everybody would love that.
I would love that.
I mean, yeah, me too. I mean, is there something we could do where we never have to do any work and we're just better? I mean, yeah, it's a dream, of course, but that's just not the reality. And as much as we say we would love that, the real gift for everything is in the work. I mean, that is the lesson. That is the juicy of your life, is like, as soon as you can realize that all of the good is figuring out what are the gifts. What are the gifts in it all? Because it's all a gift. It's all teaching you something and helping you to grow and change. And like, can you reframe the victim story into the gift? Like, how much can you own and how much can you try to like pull it out and pull it out and look at it? But I think prep work is so important. So that you, I always say, like, bang for your buck, man. This is an amazing tool, like, to really do heavy stuff more rapidly than a lot of modalities. But man, to get the most out of it, you got to really lean in and do that prep work. And so that's why, I mean, we have a really, built out prep book that we give everyone. And we don't we don't check it like homework, but we do talk about it and be like, have you done it? Or how's it going? What prompts have you done? What pages are you on? Like that kind of thing, because it really does make a huge fundamental difference. And like you said, the access to ketamine is greater than it's ever been. It's very accessible now. You can get on the internet and get it to your house in 5 seconds. And guess what? Nobody will ask you anything. Nobody will care. Nobody will, but what we've actually seen now is we actually see that people are using the at-home models that are available online, having some stuff start to come up, and then realizing, oh, I need more support. And so that's important. So they are increasing access. I wish they gave people more support, but I do think people are now starting to go like, oh, it's not just the medicine. It's not just the medicine. We need to do other things. But we're also based, sadly, in the broken medical system, where that's the story we've told people, that they don't have to do anything, that the goal is pills and drugs. So you don't have to change your diet. You don't have to, you don't have to change it. You don't have to work on your sleep. We have a sleeping pill. You don't have to, like, you don't have to eat well. We have this. You don't have to, you don't have to take care of your blood pressure because we have a medicine. It's like, and medications are good, and interventional medicine, has created a lot of health in a lot of ways. But I think, you know, our mental health system has wrecked us. The amount of people that are on polypharmacy, that have gotten on polypharmacy uneducated, from well-meaning physicians that are overwhelmed and don't have psych backgrounds, and then they're now on 6 meds and they don't understand why. They don't feel anything. They don't feel like they want to die, but they're not living. Like, their emotional bandwidth is 2 inches wide. They have like no ability to access, and then they're trying to get off of stuff and stuff, so it's like, man, we got to teach people that the answer is not a pill. The answer is not the med. And I think that is a gift of ketamine, is to like do a real state change. And the gift of psychedelics is like, this is a tool for you to do the work. and how.
Absolutely. I think too with what you're saying is I think there's a lot of therapeutic healing medicinal benefits of someone just being put in the driver's seat of their own well-being with everything that you're saying, right? So much of our medical system has taken that away. We have this authoritative hierarchical model. When I studied hypnosis, it was wild to think about it. So there's a few times where we're naturally in hypnosis, and one of them is when we are around authority. So if you look at our medical system, it's designed to build authority. You look, if you think about it, the client is seated and the doctor, right, is standing up. When we look up, we're automatically in hypnosis because it reminds us of being children. When the doctors are wearing a certain uniform, that is a sign of authority. If you look at, there's so many what are they called, studies that have been done where cancer patients die within a 3-week period of the prognosis of the doctor's orders. And that's because we're just naturally in hypnosis. And so for us to kind of take that power back is so amazing, to be put back into the driver's seat. And my life really changed. I mean, it's been probably a decade, if not more at this point, when I learned that 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut. And so if you have something, depression, anxiety, PTSD, that is affected by serotonin levels, and you're thinking, "Oh, it doesn't matter what I eat." Well, think again.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that was a big part of, one of the founding kind of principles of Illumma was to break that hierarchical approach. That we are our patients, we are no different. We meet you where you are. The goal is, we all struggle. Being human is hard. There's nothing wrong with you. Your nervous system is actually reacting exactly how it's supposed to, given the inputs that it has been given. So there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, but you're ready to change. And that is actually your inner intuition calling to you saying, I'm ready. That's what it is. That's why you're seeking. It's not, there's nothing, that is your inner healer calling to try to help you. And the goal is what has happened is your anxiety and depression and all of this trauma has just turned down that voice on that inner healer, and you've lost connection to it. You don't listen to it anymore. That intuition is so turned off. And so our real goal is to help you by continually checking in and turn that voice up, turn that volume back up. That's why we're always co-creating with clients. We are not telling them what to do. We're meeting with you. We're getting your feedback. We're using our clinical knowledge and our knowledge of ketamine to guide the process, but it's guided by you. It's not guided by us. It's guided by what are you ready for? Like what, and really deeply sit into that. What do you need? What do you want? And so that's always something that we're really big on, is like checking in with people after each session and making sure, like, were you in the room? How did you feel? How are you feeling now? Are you feeling like you're ready to go deeper? Did that feel like too much? Did that feel overwhelming? And then we check in right before they start. Okay, this is what we talked about. You said you wanted to go up. Is that still sitting with you correctly? Or did you have a super stressful week and you didn't sleep and now you're feeling dysregulated and maybe you're not ready to dive in like you were last week? And so that's, I think, a really big thing. But I think that allows people to own the healing, because I think when we externalize our healing, we give all of our power away, and then we make ourselves reliant on external to make us better. And the goal is that when you get better, that you did it, that your body did it, that this amazing thing that you've been given is actually a self-healing machine, has actually healed itself, has really taught you these lessons. And so that's really, I think, so empowering to like just change that model in general, just to help people remember that they can heal themselves because they forget.
Amen. Yeah, and I love
Yeah.
what you're saying. I'm hearing it more and more with the interviews that I'm doing for the show, of a lot of clinic owners and facilitators and things like that talking about the peer-to-peer model, right? Which is what you're saying of like, hey, we're here to help you. We're here to, give you the knowledge that you need at the time that you need it, but really taking that hierarchy and putting it more level, and so that we can give that onus of control back to the client, back to the patient, who says, hey, I know what's best for me. I haven't been using that knowledge. I haven't been using that information. I've been kind of bulldozing, right? Like my sleep habits, my eating habits, my relating habits, my, human taking care of human vessel habits, and then to give it that back to people and then say, "Hey, you know yourself best. How are you doing?" And if, in my experience, depending on how far the person is from that way of relating to themselves, it might take them a few weeks to get back to like, okay, I can trust my body. Yeah, my body's telling me I'm tired. I can trust that. I don't have to like double up the coffee and bulldoze this. Like maybe I can do something different. And that's when they're open to what you were saying earlier, right? Of doing the work to repattern the patterns that got them to where they are.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think ketamine gives you this really big gift for a lot of people, at least. It because it helps with the symptoms almost immediately for most people, like at least in the first few sessions, most people feel a reduction of anxiety and depression. And you really, especially if you've been struggling for decades and you don't know what it feels like to downregulate those things, is you get a really pretty big energetic lift because you don't realize how much of your energy is getting used to like stay in those stuck states. Like how much energy anxiety takes from your system is insane. And so, or depression, the same thing. And so you just have always had kind of this low energy. Even if your anxiety and you're rattling high, you still have less energy to kind of that kind of fulfilling energy. And so the gift that it gives you is because the symptoms go down, you get this kind of energetic boost. And at the same time, this interest to kind of explore the work. And I think that is real. We try to like really encourage people for the fun and excitement of that and to almost try to gamify that as like, this is an awesome time to start trying things that you think you want to do and that you think will be fulfilling for yourself, whether that be any kind of self-care stuff, meditation, creative work, movement, being outside more. Like, what are the practices that you've been deeply driven to do, but you have not felt the energy or need to do or like ability to do? Because it's really hard and disheartening for people who have struggled for decades, like, especially with depression. Like when people say, oh, just go outside and walk, like, like that. Yes, that is true. But like when success is days out of bed, that feels impossible. When success is a shower, that feels impossible. But when you finally get this energy to like, oh my God, I can, because you're not only not doing the things, you're also beating yourself up for not doing the things. So it's this kind of twofer. And so to get that energetic lift, typically what people feel around mid series, and to really start to help them kind of like, what are the things that you love doing as a kid? Like that is a great time to kind of explore. There's the parts of yourself that you lost to your mental health that are that your nervous system is craving. And so really trying to help people have fun with that as opposed to like view it as like this slog of self-care. Oh, I gotta meditate and I gotta, write gratitude journals or whatever. I'm like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. Like you get to do whatever you want. Yes, there are some core things that we've studied that studies have found that are helpful, but doesn't mean you have to do them in the same way that everybody else does them.
Yeah, I like to say when I'm first meeting with clients, ketamine isn't going to fix your problems, but it's going to make you fixing your problems actually easier and accessible.
Oh, I love that.
And that's what it does. It's like, oh, you know what, going for a walk outside doesn't feel like worse than death right now. I think I could do that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and that's the thing too, is really encouraging clients to start small. And then I love to, with clients that are so new to that, just like holistic, level of self-care and nourishment, like let's make a menu, right? Of just like, okay, 5-minute walk, you hated it. Great. You never have to do that again. Waking up and doing a gratitude practice, great. You loved it. Do it for a week, see what happens. Do it for 3 days. There's certain practices that I have that I'm just like, I've seen the compound benefits of it. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to skip a day because I know what happens if I skip a day and then skip a few days where I just like start to slip a little bit. And so I'm like, no, I'm actually, like you said, I'm having fun with it because it's keeping me uplifted. It's keeping me on the path that I want to be on. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people, when they get enough space between those dense states of being, right? When they're actually able to, yeah, like take a shower, get out of bed, go outside, get dressed, those things that at once could feel impossible, then it's really tapping into, okay, now you see that that's possible without it being excruciating and painful. Well, what kind of person do you want to be? And how does that person treat themselves?
Yeah, that's one thing that we have in our prep book, which I think is a really beautiful practice to start prior to ketamine, as we call it, day in your dream life, is to get real clear about forward projecting and be like, if everything worked out perfectly, if you could magically appear 5 years down the road and your life was exactly how you wanted it, write down in as much annoying detail as possible what, from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed, what does that day look like? Because it makes everything from then on much easier to decide. Because I think it then makes things A or B, because it's like, is what I'm doing pushing me closer to that or not? And not every step has to be, it's not this achievement thing, but it definitely gives you some guidelines to kind of move towards and lean in towards things that's not coming from nowhere. Like that's, I think the other thing that people really think is like when you do that, that's just like some made up hooey that you're just like, that's your intuition. That's your, there, it's coming from inside of your soul. Like it's not nothing. It's important information that is trying to get communicated. And so using those as opportunities of really leaning into like, if you want to live at the beach, like other things will have to change. Or like if you really want to have a partner, other things have to like there's things if you want to live a creative life, there's certain choices you need to make towards that. And that doesn't mean you have to be full creative, but it at least gives you some guidelines because I think a lot of people are so locked into what they should do that they're not leaning into what really fills them up, which obviously I want to speak from obviously there is a place of privilege of speaking from being able to do what you want. Um, but I'm not saying like go, you're living in Bali and whatever, but I'm saying like being realistic about like what kind of things you want around you and what really lights you up, I think is an important a practice to start before you start and then revisit it afterward and see if those things compare or if anything else has come up.
Absolutely. I'm a huge believer in life by design. I do believe it's a privilege, and I do believe that those of us with that privilege have a responsibility to do it because otherwise, we have this privilege, and if we're not doing it, then we're not making full use of that privilege. But with what I see with a lot of clients that I work with ketamine do have that privilege, and the thing that I see that gets in the way of that is they don't trust that voice, right? And they're just like, I don't know if, and that's, building the process of self trust, building the process of listening to yourself, meditating, quiet, contemplative practices that get you to sort through the different voices so that you can see and understand and feel which one is the voice of scarcity, fear, which one's the voice of truth, which one's the voice of childhood patterning, right? There's so many different voices. I love Inside Out because it's really normalized to that. So really getting to know, and I think it's for everyone. I feel comfortable saying it's for everyone. The voice of intuition, the voice of sort of like soul communication, soul calling is the one that is the quietest. It's the one that's most patient. It's not the one that's going to yell over fear. So you got to like really sort through the fearful, anxious, angry voices to get to the one that's like, hey, let's go live at the beach, right? So tuning into that voice is the first thing. The second thing that I see as an obstacle is that once people hear the message, then they get into the topic of worthiness, and they're like, well, who am I to have the thing that other people don't get to have? And then and then the worthiness piece comes in of like, who am I to have this? And then it's the second side of that coin to that is, well, doesn't everybody want to live at the beach, right? Like, why do I get it when it's what everybody wants? And it's like really telling clients of just like, no, not everybody wants that. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that there's people that hate the beach and never want to live there? It's real. I know some of them. They get sunburned and they don't want to be out in the open in the open air like that.
They hate sand. There's a lot of people that hate
There's a
sand.
lot of people that hate sand. Exactly. So it's really just, yeah, everything that we're talking about, right? Like bringing people back to themselves and back into the conversation within themselves and also into that place of trusting oneself. And it starts with little things like getting out of bed in a different way than you used to before the ketamine started.
For sure. Yeah, I think that not trusting of self is so common. I mean, that's just really a common experience that people have, is that they don't deserve it. I mean, it's just an unworthiness script. I think that so many people find really common, of like, you don't trust yourself. And again, I think that trust is built in tiny daily actions every day. Like, can you trust that you're going to show up for yourself? And when you start abandoning yourself, and typically people who are struggling have been abandoning themselves for decades, and they started doing that because they needed to, and they've kept doing that because they're in a pattern. And how do we repattern that's a story that happened and you reacted exactly how you were supposed to, and now that action is no longer serving you, and how do you begin to unpack and unravel the things that are not serving you to become this next version of yourself, whoever that's going to be.
Yeah, that's so well said right there, right? Of just like the pattern that developed for whatever you were going through, right? And then there wasn't an update of like, hey, I'm not in the same danger. I'm not in the same pattern. I'm not in the same environment that I was in when I was insert the age that it happened, 5, 10, whatever it was. And the thing that most people don't understand is that to take the reins back from that patterning is a pretty deep process, because you have to build enough safety with yourself, like you're saying, that you can trust that you'll show up for yourself. Whatever that patterned way of being is a survival mechanism, and are you going to survive in a different way? And so building that trust with yourself that you're going to show up for yourself, you're going to care for yourself, and then giving that part that's stuck in survival, stuck in whatever mechanism, giving it a different job, giving it a different like, hey, you're really good at like really noticing fine details, right? Like, why don't you look around and tell me all the fine details of what's going right rather than what's going wrong, right? Why don't you give me all, like, explore the fine details of what I'm grateful for? When I first started as a hypnotherapist, my original training was to kill those parts. And then with time, I was just like, they never die. They don't. They really never die. And so it was just like,
Yeah.
okay, like we can exile them. And that was like the best that I could do, is like we could send them to another planet, another island far away. And that worked the best, but we can't kill them. And so it's like, can we give them a different job? And can we assure them that they will always be welcome, right? They just want to make sure that they're included and welcome, and that they'll still have a place at the table when they're not in charge of survival.
Completely agree. That's why parts work is so, so, so helpful. Is like, I remember when I was first kind of working on my, core fundamental of unworthiness, and I kind of had this inner critic that I called the inner bitch named Kayla. And I thought my whole job was to kill her. Like, I thought that was the job of like this work, was like, we're going to decapitate, like she cannot yell at me anymore because we're going to take her head off. And then what I slowly realized is she was just protecting me in the way that she knew how to. She was trying to keep me safe by keeping me small, but in her way, that was very protective. And really, she was my father. so, so that she just said, voiced, what she had heard. And so, like, to slowly befriend her and really ask what she was doing, instead of like, why do you feel like I need to be protected right now? Like, what is coming up? And just a reminder, I'm an adult, I'm okay, you don't need to protect me, I'm actually really safe, watch this, we're fine, you know and then slowly, actually, through that action, she got small, and she's actually my playful side. She's not my
Wow.
she's kind of this playful, she's the kid kind of version of this teenage version of me, and so she's, the give no fucks girl, like, which is the really important part of me as an adult, is like to not get downtrodden by adulthood, but to keep that, like, do what you want. Nobody can tell you what to do, kind of voice. And so I love your idea of like giving them a different job, because I think it's really important to realize that no parts of you are wrong. That's why that whole story of you being broken is the false narrative. You're not broken. You have certain parts that are really active right now, and they're active because they're not getting what they want. And usually when we turn towards them instead of trying to shove them in a closet, just like actual children, they'll get, you know, don't do that to your kids. But they'll get really kind because they're needing something. And so to really listen and give them what they need, as opposed to ignore them or try to, block them or put them away. It doesn't work, as
It really
as
doesn't.
you've seen.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And it's also, it's a way to prolong the healing, right? Like what you were
Oh,
saying
for
earlier,
sure.
right? Of like people come in and they see an immediate, relief from symptoms, and they don't realize the mental load of like shoving something in because once you shove something in the closet that wants to come out of the closet, well, now you need to have a guardian there to hold the closet shut. And then you're living in fear of what if this closet comes open at brunch with my friends, at a board meeting, at wherever, right? And so you live in this constant fear and you develop an entire identity around, I have to keep this closet shut 24/7. And then you're just like, okay, let's just look in the closet, let's see what's in there. And then you open it up and it's just a little baby. It's just a little baby. You're just saying, wow.
I think that is such an important message for people, is like, because we hear it a lot when people start ketamine, that their biggest fear is something's going to come up. Something, something's coming up. And I was like, oh, yeah, something's coming up. But I promise you, it is never as bad as you think it is. It is never. What the ghost, the boogeyman in your closet is not what you think it is. And the only way, and actually talking to a lot of people who will not do psychedelics because of that fear. I actually just had a conversation this weekend when I was at an event about a very wound tight girl who was like, I'm not doing psychedelics. I don't want anything to come up. And I said, if you think things aren't coming up, isn't ruining your life right now, you're not being honest with yourself, because it's so controlled by you right now. It's so much attention. Like, you are taking so much attention and effort to keep that thing in that closet that you are wasting such a huge percentage of your life by just thinking that you're hiding it. First off, everybody can see your stuff. That's the other thing that I always tell people. If you think you're sneaky, you're not. If you think that we can't tell you're struggling, we can. We can all see it, especially people who've done work. I mean, once you've come on the other side of the light, you will see people's trauma all over their bodies, all over their faces, all over their behavior, all over their communication. You will see it everywhere. And if you don't think that people notice that you're struggling, you're delulu. We see it. So you don't need to suffer more. Like, do yourself a favor, and actually everyone around you a favor, everyone you love, everyone that loves you a favor, by doing the work to help yourself. Because I mean, the statements always said everybody's in therapy because people won't go to therapy, because because the people who need to go to therapy won't. I mean, that's the truth, is like, a lot of people suffer because other people won't do the work. And don't be that person in the container. Everybody show up and do your work, because it makes everyone around y'all, it just makes everything better. And yes, it's hard. And yes, it's a struggle, but I promise it's never as hard as trying to keep it in. Never.
Yeah, it's what is it? The anticipation of something is always worse than the actual event. That's what it is. It's the anticipation of facing that thing. And the thing with that most people, there's actually an earlier episode on the show that's, what is it called? What if ketamine brings up bad memories, where I address that topic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that, people think that are trying to keep something from coming up. Well, the thing is, 99% of the time, they know exactly what they don't want to come up. It's like, I
Yeah,
don't
it's
want
not that
that.
far back.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want that. And that's the thing is like, by definition, if you don't want to be surprised, it's not going to be that because you know exactly what that is. So you might as well deal with that so you can get to the deeper layer of what's actually running the show. You know, with parts work, the way that I've been trained in it is we get to a part and we say, who's your boss?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Who are you reporting to? Because I would say about 80% of the time, it's not always, but about 80% of the time, that part is just a messenger of another part because that's how trauma works is there's an impact, there's an imprint of that impact, and then our whole life is built around that. And so the more you can get deeper into okay, it's not that memory, the one that people are so afraid of coming up, that's probably the most surface level thing because when you actually start getting into it and actually start uncovering the memories, patterning, conditioning that created everything else, it's not what people think.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, that's why I always think it's funny because they're like, I'm like, I know exactly what you think's going to come up, so it will. Yeah, it's right there. It wants to come up. Obviously, it's in your head.
Yeah, it's already up.
Like it's ready.
Yeah.
It's ready to process. And so yeah, just leaning in. That's always my thing. Is like just lean in, lean in. Nothing is as scary as you think.
Amen. Yeah, the execution of it, the anticipation of it is always the worst part.
Yeah, it's understandable. I mean, it's hard to remember now because I've done psychedelics for so many decades. It's hard to remember. I was never scared of them, but there's a lot of people that come in with a lot of trepidation, a lot of fear, and that's founded. That's not, unfounded. You're doing it, but really, it's the biggest fear is the fear of the unknown. They don't know what's about to happen, and that's actually the biggest anxiety is well, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm like, I promise, just come in for one session. We start out super slow. Again, please start slow and low, people. Like, just go someplace that's going to really care for you and start low. Like, just dip your toe in. Like, give your nervous system a break, so that it can, because you'll be able to slowly wade into the deep when you're ready. Like, you don't need to push yourself. This isn't some kind of race. You don't have to dissociate. You don't have, like, stop strong arming things. Like, more medicine is not going to make you better faster. Like, that's just not the truth. And I think, again, I think that kind of goes back to our broken model. I think that kind of goes back to kind of the American model of more is better and bigger and something mean. And that's just not the case. I promise. After caring for as much people as we've had tons of people get insanely better, never dissociating one time. Never, And for some people, they need that and they're ready and they want to do that and they find it very helpful. But I don't think that it's necessary for everybody. So really tap in and lean into what you feel called to do. And be honest with yourself. Don't sit in comfort. Push yourself, but at the same time, like, listen to yourself.
Right. And also, again, listening to yourself as a form of building that self trust so that you are building rapport with
Yes.
yourself.
Yes. Yes. That's the most important.
Okay. So
Your only lifelong relationship is with yourself.
you're the one you
The
go to
only
bed with
goal.
every single night, no matter what happens.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
so earlier we were talking about like the people that don't do so well or the people that aren't doing work are in the mindset that the ketamine's going to do everything for them and don't really want to like look at the things, right? And then what about you mentioned the other two, someone who's apathetic and then someone who does really well. What are those metrics?
So apathetic, I would say, are people that okay, they kind of know what they're supposed to do, but there's kind of a few versions of them. One is people that sit in comfort that will have those conversations and they're like, it's fine, and they'll kind of just sit at this like very low dose, very like just not really pushing I didn't really, yeah, it was fine, but I want to stay there, this kind of, and I'm just like, what do we, like, what's the goal? Like, not everything needs to be goal based, but like, why are we here? Or they're just not checking in with themselves enough. They're kind of, and again, I think that maybe leans towards maybe they weren't 100% ready, or, they're not, you know, people have, people that come to Illuma have to be working with somebody. So you have to have a coach, or a therapist. You have to be actively working with somebody, or you have to come to our free integration group. So you have to actively be doing something. And so I think that's really that. The other time that I find apathy is when somebody else in the family is not on board and people are going through treatment. And I think that can really sabotage a situation. We're putting you in a very neuroplastic mindset. And if you go home and the person that your loved one is not on board and they decide to say negative things when you're in this really neuroplastic mode, it will just kind of take all the wind out of whatever sail you had. And that's a really sad experience. And so it's something that we try to ask and try to get as much information about, but we can't always know. And so, like, either pre or post, like, we had a client that kept driving, her husband kept dropping her off, and they would get in a fight every time. Like, I don't know because I wasn't in the dynamic, but what it looked like from the outside is he was sabotaging her experience. He would put her in this, like, kind of frantic, negative headspace, and then she would go in, and as much as she wanted to do the work, she was so involved in that unhealthy relationship that I think it made it really hard. So it's better for people to be neutral. I think really having strong boundaries around this, like, if you know that there's people in your life that are not on board with you doing things, not talking or seeing them within this like 72-hour window around your treatment, I think is something that you need to set a real strong boundary about, because you're dedicated to doing this. You can say, with all loving care, I don't want to hear your opinion or your feedback about this treatment. I've decided to do that. And if you love me, I would appreciate your support. And if your support is you can't talk to me, I view that as support.
Yeah, amen. I've seen clients stop treatment because they were getting rides from not the best person who was, just putting them into a really dysregulated state within, and it was usually the after, like you're talking about, like the before, which not there's not one that's better or worse than the other. They're both like equally, in my opinion, detrimental to the work, whether it's before or after. But I've had clients, that have just been like, you know what, I'm done with ketamine. But the real thing that they were done with was getting rides from the wrong people.
Yeah. Take an Uber.
Yeah.
It's worth the $20.
Yeah.
Have the silent Uber, no music, no talking.
Yeah.
Get in there. Yeah. So I think that can really sabotage people a lot. And then people who do the best are really, again, people who've done the work, people who are excited about the process, people that are deeply curious about themselves and about the process, people who have a lot of love and support on board, people who has a strong support system. Um, and people who are really looking to explore, like, we always see build the toolbox. And so, like, really looking to explore, like, probably already have some tools that they find helpful, and are interested in, like, learning what those other things are. So I think those tend to be the people that do the best. Uh, Also tends to happen, people who have been struggling longer, it takes longer. Realize that if you've been struggling for decades, if you're on polypharmacy, if you're on more than 3 meds, it's likely going to take longer. And that's not bad. It's just how we just have more to work through. And so it's not a bad thing. But I think going in and realizing, like, I've been struggling for 20 years, that it's going to take a bit, and that's okay. And that you've been struggling for 20 years. Good news. This is not going to take 20 years. Nowhere close to 20 years. So, and you'll still get incrementally better. So you'll feel something. You'll typically feel a shift, but it might be slower to have. And so just setting your expectations, I think, is a other big thing on where you fall on that line, is like, what are your expectations? I think information is really helpful. I think sometimes there's over information. You've read too many things. You have too many ideas of I'm going to have visuals and I'm going to have this thing. And I'm like, there's a lot of people who have read about visuals and then come in and they're, the 10% that don't have any visuals. And that can feel deeply disappointing, if I'm honest, like deeply disappointing. It does tend to happen when people are benzos. They don't have as many visuals, or they have very dark visuals, like not dark in theme, but dark in color and kind of lightness. And that can feel disappointing for people. And so kind of letting people know that the visuals are not the thing that heals you either, like trying to really set your expectations of whatever is happening with your subconscious is exactly what your subconscious is needing for it to heal. And like, again, that's that trust. Can you trust yourself? Which can be hard when you've been struggling and you feel like your body's abandoned you. But can you trust that whatever's happening is exactly what's supposed to happen?
Amen, right? Trust the process. And I know that that can be really challenging because most of us want to say, if you just tell me what the process is, then I can trust it. Just tell
Yeah,
me what
you
it
can
is.
write me that. Yeah, I will trust your process.
Yeah, just tell me. Like, just be like, okay. But it's like if you were to like, right, as professionals that have been doing this for years and years, we could probably like I probably could script a process. It's just like you're gonna feel good, and then you're gonna start building yourself up, and then you're gonna crash deeper than you've ever been, and you're gonna wonder why you ever started all this and that you're worse off than you've ever been. And then you're gonna slowly build yourself up out of that cave, and you're gonna think that like everything is better forever. And then just as you think that, you're gonna crash even deeper or just a little it's like if we were to say that, people would be like, it is a journey, right? It's like I always say this, right? If I look back on my life before I started this work, and if I went to that version of myself that was just like, oh, seems pretty straightforward. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going to go. And then being on what is it called? The scenic route for the past 5 years doing what I've been doing. And I'm just like, I wouldn't have started that journey if I knew that it was, but I would also on this side, I would never change anything about this journey. Right. And it is like you were saying earlier, it's the journey that of trusting yourself, the journey of building back, rapport and relationship with yourself, the journey of getting curious and trying new things. That is what actually heals. And the ketamine just makes it possible.
Hmm. Completely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there is no end point. That's the other thing that I always tell people is they think there's some like a cheat, like you're going to get to the top of the mountain, there's going to be a bell, and then we're done. We're healed and finished. Listen up, guys. That's not a thing. There is no end. This is it. This is it for the rest of your life. You get to work on yourself. Do you want to do that? Or do you want to bury your head in the sand? Those are kind of your options at this point. So, I mean, again, I think that's why gamifying and making it interesting is important. Like, I think really like making sure that you know that the hard is the good. Like, as soon as you take that negative charge off of things being hard, it really changes things. It really changes that victim mentality that things have happened to me. Everything's happened to me. Look at this. People are screwing me over. This is happening. This is happening. No, 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 no. That's all your perception. You're in charge of that. Things do happen to people, but how you react to them is your decision. And so I've met plenty of people who have gone through some stuff that I don't know how they're functioning. And those people have turned themselves into bright, shining lights to guide other people. No matter how hard you think things have been for you, there's somebody that's been through things 10 times harder and has decided to use that as the power to light the way. And that is your choice. That is your choice, that you get to decide whether or not you want to do that. And it's not about comparing trauma. It's about like you get to own it and use it for good and not let it, destroy you from the inside.
Absolutely. The way I think about it is that there's millions of people not called to ketamine, not called to doing the work, not called to starting that journey that you were just talking about, right? Like the journey that is, as long as there's breath, as long as you're breathing, you're going to keep working on yourself, right? And you could think of that as exhausting. You can think of it as annoying. You can think of it as anything. But when you learn how to pace yourself, it actually becomes really manageable. right? And so it's like if you have that calling, right, which I'm assuming people listening to this podcast have that calling, and you bury your head in the sand and try to ignore it, well, guess what? That's going to what we were talking about earlier. Now you're shoving something in the closet that you're not going to look at, and it's going to cause you pain and suffering and hardship, right? Or you say, okay, I don't know how. I don't know how. I don't know how to look at myself. I don't know how to do this. And then you can connect with a practitioner that can help guide you. Like you said, there's people that are on this path. There's people that are moving this forward for humanity is the way I see it, that you can reach out and ask for help and be humble enough to say, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but someone is going to help me, right? And so it's like it really is choose your heart. Do you want to bury your head in the sand, pretend it doesn't exist, you pretend you don't have the calling, and pretend, what I lovingly call it's fine syndrome. It's fine. Everything's fine. Everything is fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Right? Do you want to live that hard, or do you want to live the hard of just like trial, error, get up, fall down, like all of that, which honestly, when you get into the mindset that you're talking about of everything's happening for me, becomes so fun.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Because when you've done it enough, you realize at the fall that there's good.
Mhm.
And so you actually anticipate the good when the fall happens. You sit in a minute and you probably get sad, and then you feel your emotions. But you do realize, like, there's a practice where you write down everything. When something bad happens, you write it down. And then in a month, you come back and you write the lesson under it. And then
Oh.
6 months later, you write the lesson under it. And then a year later, you write the lesson under it. And if you do that enough, you will reprogram yourself to look for the lesson instead of look for what happened. And that is a guide to tell you that that when bad things happen, good will come after. It is just how we grow as humans. We do not grow in the soft and easy. That is not when things grow.
Right. What is it? Like smooth sailing doesn't make for a tough ship or
Good
something
say.
like that?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Paraphrasing here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Alli, thank you so much for all of the
Of
wisdom that you've
course.
shared here today. And I'm going to take that
Yes.
practice on because I feel like in 2025, the lessons are coming faster. And I want to write these moments down of like the down turns and me being like, oh, lesson. And I like that of like week later, a month later, 6 months, and a year later to really reprogram the brain.
Yeah, it's fair. I found it very helpful.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to share before we wrap it up?
No, there's a lot of, actually, I do. Yes, there's a lot of really good ketamine providers out there. There's also, it's very Wild West right now. There's a lot of people doing, I want to say good intentioned work in unethical ways, but I don't know everybody's intentions. But if you're listening to this and you're interested in exploring ketamine, really do the work of finding good providers, find good support people, find good actual medicine providers. If you can, go meet them in person beforehand, feel the space. In order to heal, your nervous system has to be able to downregulate and relax. You need to feel the energy of a space in order to do that. If you go into a place and it doesn't feel right, do not move forward because you will not get as much out of it. And so, really talk to the people, ask them about what kind of prep, what kind of integration, how do they do dosing? Like, really do your homework because the provider makes a huge difference. And I mean, the therapist, I mean, the medical people, I mean, the whole thing, the space, the set and setting, who's doing integration, it all really matters. And you're about to spend a lot of money and take a lot of time to do something that can be life transforming in a way that it's hard to really understand prior to going into it. But really do your due diligence in finding a provider that you feel good and really aligned with. That will make the biggest difference.
Amen to that. Yeah, we have an episode. It hasn't released yet at the time that we're recording, but it's recorded and ready to release, I think, in 2 weeks. That is an episode about how to vet ketamine clinics. So it has,
Oh, great.
yeah. So
I
we'll have a
think,
whole list of that, and so people can like really check the boxes. And I've been getting really beautiful feedback of people listening to the show that they're asking better questions of providers because of the information they hear on this. So I think today's episode is just going to give people even more questions to ask providers.
Yeah, I think it's just so vital. Yeah. Well,
Amazing.
thank you, Anna. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you too, Alli. And we'll have everything linked in the show notes. People, how to find you, how to find Illumma, and just thank you.
Of course. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for tuning into Ketamine Connections with me today. If this episode supported you, the best way to say thank you is by sharing it or leaving a review. And if you're enjoying the show and you want to connect more, I would love to see you on my newsletter. That is where I share behind the scenes insights, thoughtful guidance, and other parts of your ketamine journey. Never spam, always fun. And honestly, since getting kicked off of social media in 2024, it's where I share the real stuff. I share stories, tools, updates that I don't post anywhere else. So sign up at any of the links in the show notes and you'll be the first to know when I'm hosting live Q&A or when I'm doing other fun things that are not available anywhere else. It's the best place to hear about it, stay connected, and grow together. All right, that is all I have for today. Thank you. Stay curious, and I'll see you next time.